Once Midgard was created within the cold void of Ginnunga Gap, in the center of this great land, grew the mighty ash, Yggdrasil. The tree stretched its leaves high to Asgard, and its roots to its surrounding realms, and as low as the deepest recesses of the realms beyond to light. The three main roots of the great tree ran down to the realms of Midgard, from whence the tree rose towards the heavens, to the wild lands of Jotunheim, around Midgard, and far below, in the gloomy lands of Hel. No root reached Asgard, as what kind of tree would grow its roots upwards? Instead, the passage to the highest realm was only possible by the rainbow bridge of Bifrost. The great ash acted as a highway between the realms. In a sense, a body could plan a trip from Midgard to Jotunheim, for instance, by climbing up the bark of the tree and traversing its roots. This of course would be pure theory, as the journey by this simple path was not only leagues upon leagues long, but as massive as infinity. There was no clear border between Jotunheim and Midgard, much like there was no sudden wall of unquenchable flame on the borders of Muspelheim. Each realm and Yggdrasil was a universe upon itself. How the celestial beings moved from place to place was not as simple as putting one foot after the other. One had to know the way before he could traverse it. Our journey through the realms should begin at the beginning and end of all things. During the age of Ginnunga Gap, the realm of fire, Muspelheim, and the realm of frost, Niflheim, seeped from their elemental boundaries and coalesced in the center of the empty void, creating the creature, Ymir, the primordial giant. The flesh of this giant, after its violent death, came to be Midgard. Muspelheim was a vast furnace of flame, with fires hotter than any sun, and wilder than wildfire. Not a single speck of air wandered the inferno, nor a piece of coal had a chance to survive this place without turning into a puddle. The realm of fire was not simply the mouth of a mighty furnace. This was the primordial flame that would not spare anything in its path. The cold reaches of Niflheim were not as violent as its counterpart, but not the ideal place for a ski holiday either. The cold in the land of frost stemmed not only from its lack of heat, but from the sort of cold unfathomable to a world that knows of summers and flame. Imagine the bluest winter, and the gripping cold that seemed to bite with invisible teeth. It would not even begin to describe Niflheim. To step in Niflheim would freeze a mortal body solid within an instant, rendering the flesh and spirit into the very ice of the realm. Before Ragnarok begins the season of Fimbulvinter, 3 winters in a row, without a summer in between. As in the beginning of all things, Niflheim has once more seeped out from its boundaries and gripped Midgard, blotting its sun and turning its verdant fields blue with ice and snow. At the eve of Ragnarok, the fires of Muspelheim shall burst from their realm and whip the world, along with the fires of divine war. As all began in ice and fire, thus it shall end as well. Midgard, the land of mortals, and the last resting place of Ymir, the giant of ice and flame. The rivers ran with the giant's watery blood, the earth, his flesh, the rocks and stones, his bones. What came of the carcass, was a world of rules and absolutes. Nothing of Midgard could paradox itself. Everything remained a stable ground for everything else. The tree, Yggdrasil, stood in the center of this land, fixed to the solid ground. The tree's shadow reached as far as the surrounding ocean, the home of Jormungandr, the world serpent, who indeed encircled the world and caused earthquakes with its thrashes and movements. Beyond the great circling sea was the land of the Jotun, Jotunheim. This land was fenced off by Odin, with Ymir's eyebrows, to keep the impossibly powerful Jotun from running loose in Midgard, subjugating the world of mortals to their whims and brutality. While Midgard stood solid and unshakable in its rules and standards, Jotunheim was a wild land of untamed forests, ferocious beasts, and mountains that scraped the sky. A land unfettered by the stiff shackles of reason and stability. The Jotun are often referred to as giants, as in beings like men, but standing leagues higher. However, the truth was that the Jotun were powerful magicians and shapeshifters. A Jotun could indeed increase their size to as high as the sky, or change their form to that of an animal at whim. While Jotunheim was a world of untamed wilderness and savagery, Alfheim was a great forest of untamed beauty and growth, a verdant paradise with natural glory beyond the thoughts and imaginations of men. A land of color, mystery and beauty, with trees as tall as to rival Yggdrasil, rivers that sparkled with a lambent blue, even without the light of a moon, and air pregnant with sweet aromas and fragrances to turn the sweetest fruit and intoxicating perfumes as vile as dishwater in comparison. Alfheim was the land of the elves, creatures like humans, but far surpassing in beauty and wonder. These children of the forest rode on white glowing steeds, or unicorns, if they so chose, through their wondrous realm, in perpetual mirth and joy. One might conjure the image of fair white-haired and pointy-eared humans to see such beings, but in truth, elves are simply beauty given form. Be it in the perfection of their physique, or the absolute grace of their movement. Before his interment in Asgard, Frey, the Vanir, called himself the Lord of Alfheim, and was loved by the elves, who treated him as their forest king, bestowing him with unearthly vigor and vitality. The land of crags and mountains spread north of Midgard, as in towards Niflheim, and downwards towards the influence of Hel. This world was nothing but bare mountains and impassable terrain. The winds howled along the tops of great hills and summits, spreading snow down to the barren valleys. Down in these valleys were mighty iron doors that lead to the great expanse of the mighty mountain kingdoms of the dwarves, the kingdom of Nidavellir. Dwarves bring about the image of a wide and stout being, similar to a human, but only less than half the size. As beings born of the very rock that surrounded them, dwarves had a keen understanding of the subterranean world and the ores within its walls. Such an understanding of metals and gems had made the dwarves an invaluable asset to even the Aesir, the lords of the universe. Thor's hammer, Mjolnir, for example, was of dwarf make, and forged in such a way it could accept a blessing from Odin, that it would always return to its wielder, once thrown. Deeper than the halls of the dwarves was a dreadful place, where even the masters of the deep dare not tread, nor know the way. This was the kingdom of Svartalfheim. Svartalfheim was the home of the dark elves. These baleful beings lurked the deep recesses and preyed on those foolish souls that would get lost in their labyrinth, dark tunnels infested with massive hideous spiders and other terrors of the dark. The elves of Alfheim were nothing like their horrible cousins. While the light elves reveled in the glory of nature and magic, the dark elves lurked in the shadows and delighted in bringing about misery and cruelty to the world of light. That is not to say the dark elves look like the dwarves. These elves of darkness were similar to their light cousins, but their joys were twisted and corrupted. Instead of the love for nature, they had a love for dominating nature, bending the living world to suit their needs. While their Alfheim cousins lived together with the wild things around them, the denizens of Svartalfheim sought to bend the wills of those weaker than them, to submit to the chains and the lash. Vanaheim is the twin sister of Alfheim, if not almost the same place. A conjunction similar between Jotunheim and Midgard. Here dwelt the lords of Seidr, the magic of old. While Alfheim might have seemed magical to the eye of the mortal observer, with its great aspens that glowed in the blue nights, silver rivers, whose currents sang a melody, unexpected of natural rivers, and its majestic wildlife, the elves considered these things as magical as mushrooms growing in the rain. With Seidr, the Vanir had taken that fantastic forest and turned it into a place of wonder, even to the elves. Seidr was a type of magic that could influence all living things with but a touch from its wielder. The Vanir turned the pockets of forests with words of magic to a paradise for themselves, a place of contemplation and solitude, to study and master the arts of the unknown. The greatest Seidr wielder, Freyr, could bring forth a mighty oak from an acorn within no less time than a few breaths, turn a scrawny weakling into a log-tossing warrior, and call the might of the wild kingdom to her side. Whether the elves taught Seidr to the Vanir, or vice versa, remains a mystery. Nevertheless, so impressed were the elves with the might of the Vanir, that they accepted Freyr's brother, as their lord, and there he remained until the Aesir-Vanir War, where he was exchanged to live among the Aesir in Asgard. Follow the path of the longest route of Yggdrasil, and dig deep into the earth. This route bored through Midgard, Nidavellir, and even far past Ginnungagap, Gap, to a place beyond Asgard and the sun, a gloomy abode near Niflheim. Beings of flesh will feel the chill of the grave about their skin, and their will to live, sapped and dragged from their flesh, as they walk the path to hell, known as Helvekur. This path of jagged grey stones meandered from the outskirts of hell and through the land of lead-grey skies and stagnant winds. A wise traveler would do well to stay on this road, lest he wish to lose his way and be lost forever. Helvekur's last guide stone stood half-sunken on the outskirts of a great calm and placid lake, with a mirror-sheen surface. Along this lake spread a peaceful shore, where one might rest on the white sand and feel at peace among the whispering heathers. As all the earthly sorrows dissipate, the sleeper shall feel separated from the woes of life for all eternity. The realm of hell is often mistakenly interpreted as a place of torment and horror, but that was only half the truth. In reality, the realm was as horrifying as the crypt or a graveyard. Squirrels roamed the land, tall cypresses dot the hills, and maples shed their red and yellow leaves during autumn. After all, the ruler of the place was a woman, half alive and half dead. Hell lived across the great still lake, past the shore of bloated corpses and thick miasma, within a great black fortress as cheerful as the grave. Here, the lady of the underworld accepted those who sought the respite of death and welcomed all who entered her realm, whether they wanted or not. High above the great ash, Yggdrasil, and beyond the clouds, stood the great land of the Aesir, Asgard. The only way to this bright golden land was through the rainbow bridge, Bifrost, a pathway of pure light, and impossible to find by those unwelcome by the Aesir. Past the fantastic bridge spread the great flatlands of the realm. On one of these hills stood the ever-vigilant guardian, Heimdall, with his loud and enchanted hunting horn, Kjellahorn. Behind the back of this guardian stood the hall of Valhalla, a grand fortress, which welcomed those who had died in glorious battle to an eternity of feasting, drinking, fighting, and merrymaking. Overall, Asgard was a mirror of Midgard, but everything within its confines radiated with untold power. Every stone of this great realm was as hard as diamonds. No axe of mortal make could dream of even nicking the mighty oaks in the surrounding lush forests, and the lakes and streams produced a water so potent a single drop could carry a man through a desert for years. The sun above shone with such glory its rays could blind those unaccustomed to it, and the winds of this height could blow away weaker men on a calm day. The might of Asgard produced beings of equal measure, mighty warriors and poets, who could bellow louder than the howl of the winds, and toss stones as heavy as elephants. It should come as no surprise that only the worthy were welcome in Asgard. How could anything lesser hope to survive such a place?